The sea has a way of holding onto its secrets. But sometimes it doesn't want to keep them. Sometimes it screams them into the static, hoping someone is listening. My name is Elias Thorne. I'm a signal analyst, or I was. For the last 2 years, the only signal I could hear was the deafening silence left behind by my daughter, Lily. Grief is its own frequency, a constant hum beneath the surface of everything. Then an assignment came down the line. A perfect escape from my own haunted house, Point Reyes Lighthouse. It was a remote, skeletal tower clinging to the edge of the continent, notorious among locals for its eerie reputation. My job was simple. On paper anyway, decommission the archaic radio equipment, pack it up, and get out. A week, tops. A week of salt spray and solitude. I thought it was exactly what I needed. I was wrong. The first night was quiet, just the moan of the wind and the relentless crash of waves. But the second night, something changed. As I sat in the operator's room, a faint pulse started to break through the hiss of the old receiver. A rhythmic, deliberate signal. Coming from the lighthouse's own antenna, an antenna that should have been dead for a decade. It wasn't natural interference. It was a pattern. It was a code. My professional curiosity wrestled with the unease crawling up my spine, and curiosity won. For 3 days I barely slept, hunched over my equipment, charting the beeps and clicks. The signal was weak, distorted, but it was there. When I finally decrypted the first word, a cold dread washed over me, colder than the Pacific mist outside. The word was lonely. Soon, more fragments of messages began to form. They were simple, almost childlike. Play with me, I'm scared. Where's Mummy? Each one felt like a phantom limb, an echo of a life cut short. My analytical mind fought against it, but my grieving heart took over. I pictured a lost child's spirit, trapped in this isolated place, reaching out. Maybe this was a chance, a way to do for this spirit what I couldn't do for Lily. Atonement. I fired up the transmitter, my hands trembling as I keyed in a response in the same simple code. Who are you? I waited, my breath held tight in my chest. Minutes stretched into an hour. Then a reply crackled through the speaker. 4 letters. Toby. My connection with Toby became an obsession. I'd spend my days talking to him, listening to his fragmented stories of games and loneliness. But the more I communicated, the more the lighthouse itself seemed to warp. The playful connection I felt with Toby started to sour. Doors would slam shut in empty hallways. I'd catch fleeting movements in my peripheral vision, shadows that darted away when I turned. A child's faint giggle would sometimes echo up the spiral staircase, only to vanish when I called out. The feeling of being watched was constant. A heavy pressure on the back of my neck. One afternoon, tracing a draft, I found it, etched into the salt-grimed glass of a lantern room window, was a crude drawing. It showed a small, smiling boy holding hands with a towering, spindly creature. Its limbs were too long, its joints bent at unnatural angles, and its face was a wide, unmoving grin, like static on a screen. Beneath the drawing, one word was scratched into the glass: Toby. My blood ran cold. I hadn't been talking to the child. Toby wasn't the boy. Toby was his imaginary friend. Left behind, abandoned, and twisted into something monstrous by decades of solitary rage. The shift was immediate. The soft, childish whispers over the radio turned into a guttural, possessive growl. "You're my friend now. Don't leave me like he did." The games became threats. The final night, a storm of biblical proportions descended on the point. The wind shrieked like a banshee, and waves hammered the base of the tower. Then the power cut out. The entire lighthouse was plunged into a suffocating darkness, save for the frantic flashes of lightning. My emergency radio, battery-powered, screamed to life. The voice that came through wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a piercing shriek that filled the small room. "Don't you leave me too." It wasn't just on the radio. It was in the room with me. Lightning flashed, and for a split second I saw it. The tall, jointed horror from the drawing, its form a glitch in reality. That same wide, static grin stretching across its featureless face. It unfolded from the corner of the room, a nightmare of clicking joints and tearing fabric sounds. My own scream was lost in the storm. The last thing I remember is that terrifying smile filling my entire vision, and a single, distorted word being broadcast from the radio, spoken in my own twisted voice: "Found." Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow for more tales from the shadows.